Hey everybody, I'm Wild Man Wes.
And I'm Hefe.
And welcome to a new segment, Real World Movie Reviews. We figured we'd have fun with our first one with the... Why are we so far away?
Oh, it's a kind of a quarantine edition episode.
Yeah. What a way to start, right?
Just trying to play it safe. It's, tough in this day and age. But the show must go on.
The show does go on. And, we have to wear masks also for this whole social distancing thing. And we thought of a franchise we always enjoyed growing up with, Mortal Kombat.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I mean, come on, we all look like ninjas.
Yeah.
Oh!
We basically are Sub-Zero and Scorpion in another world.
Pretty much.
That's what this does for us. Now we understand.
Yeah. Which brings us to the big topic of today, Mortal Kombat. So for almost 30 years now, Mortal Kombat has been quite the franchise around the world. It's brought a lot of entertainment, a lot of controversy. I mean, we've had over 20 games, we've had 2 live-action films, a live-action stunt show, we've had a TV series, a web series, we've also had 2 cartoons in the past, one on the USA Network that ran for about 13 episodes, and a standalone intro to Mortal Kombat that really had some crummy CGI VR at the time, but hey, it was 95, what can you do?
Yeah.
So,
what can you do?
But, I mean, and the thing was, a lot of us got disappointed with Mortal Kombat over the years, and mainly due to the fact of, narrowing down on the violence. I mean, the ESRB really hit them hard when it came to violence back in the 90s, but in the highlight of everything, we are getting a new movie coming out in 2021, but before we get to that, we get to talk about something that came out recently, our first R-rated Mortal Kombat video. It is Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge. So
I was not familiar with this film, well, when it came out, obviously, but he brought it to my attention, and I just watched it very recently, and I had fun with it. It's really funny, just like looking at the artwork on the cover of this. You're just like, holy crap! Like it looks like one of the newer games, really. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same design as some of the newer games, but I was like really impressed with that. And then I flip over to the back, and I see Sub-Zero and Scorpion fighting. This animation style is very familiar to me because I've watched a lot, most of the DC animated films. The DC animated films have been coming out for 15 years?
Give or take.
Give or take. No, it's been about just over 10 years, so it's been like 12 years or so. I was just thinking about when the first one came out. It was like 2009. Wizard World was the premiere because I was there for Batman Gotham Knights, which is like a multi-story animated film. That was the first DC animation film that they did with that company. A lot of the casting directors and the voice actors at the time, and a lot of the producers, Bruce Timm being a big one, came back and started doing a bunch of these films. Then they started doing different stories based on different graphic novels, but basically the same animation studio doing these guys. They've been doing this for a while, but I was pretty impressed with that. I thought that it was really cool. I mean, great studio, WB Animation to work with. They've been knocking it out of the park. So
yeah, I mean, the one thing that separates this from our predecessors is the fact that in this one it's not through the eyes of the traditional 3 that we're used to of Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, and Johnny Cage. This is through the eyes of Scorpion, and even before he becomes a Spectre, he's known as Hanzo Hasashi, a member of the Shirai Ryu clan, and they have a big feud with the Lin Kuei, who basically the clan of Sub-Zero, and it's basically where Scorpion dies and how he makes a deal with the Netherrealm or Quan Chi that you don't find out about until Mortal Kombat 4. And then you get to see how he goes about his struggle, maintaining some mortality that he might have had within him, and trying to fulfill his destiny of getting revenge on Sub-Zero, and then finding out that he got tricked. So.
All right, let's not get too far into it.
I know.
We want to like give people something to eat anyway.
Oh. All right.
Cool. So yeah, starting off this movie, it was very Scorpion heavy. Obviously, it's called Scorpion's Revenge. So seeing a Mortal Kombat story focused on him, definitely because he's just a fan favorite character. Yeah. He has been since the beginning a fan favorite character, but when it first came out, he was still like one of the villain characters. This didn't necessarily make him a villain in this story. It just made him not even a hero in his own right, but more of a like definitely an anti-hero. Definitely fighting brutally, while also having a certain code, which is funny because basically that code is, I guess I don't have to kill everyone. Because he kills everyone else.
But at the beginning of the movie, he even says to his son, willpower is what makes destiny your own.
Yes.
And that follows through this entire film.
Yes, absolutely. Right. The very, very first thing that they show in the movie is it's just literally you see a scorpion fighting off these ants, and that's how it comes up. He said the scorpion may look like he needs help, but he fights. No matter how many enemies there are, he fights, and he'll carry on. It's his willpower that carries him. So it was interesting to kind of say, well, that's why he calls himself Scorpion. It was very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love the storyline, especially because a lot of things that happen within Mortal Kombat 4 that I've remembered, and especially like Deadly Alliance that came out after that, it does coincide with a lot of stories from Part 1 that you don't really talk about, that the creators, like Ed Boon and John Tobias and all them didn't tell us in the beginning. And as, the company went different ways and whatnot, you get different characters, and then you find out more about your beloved characters. And for this one, they really did their homework. So, I mean, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, we're going to talk a little bit more about what we like and what we don't like. My big thing that I was questioning was, because of the fact that the movies that we got before were, PG-13, and it kind of just, it watered down a lot of the violence. Did the violence in this do justice or make up for that? I would say yes.
Absolutely, yeah. That was one of the things that I also very much enjoyed, is the amount of violence that you would expect in Mortal Kombat, especially in today's standard of what Mortal Kombat is, like with what we've been able to get away with in the video games. It definitely translated from the video games to what we saw in this film.
Yeah, I mean, especially they took a lot of nods and a lot of liberties, especially with the X-rays that came in.
Yes, the X-ray shots
9.
were so cool. So basically, anytime that there was a fatal blow to someone's body, they would go either through, whether it was doing something to the muscle or the bone, it would have an X-ray that's immediately just in slow motion, just whoop, and show you exactly what kind of damage is being dealt, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, apart from that, I mean, the voice casting was great.
I mean, okay, so here's the thing, with the voice casting for me, there was only one noticeable name for me, but it was so funny because the movie knew it. it was very well knew.
Oh, man.
And so, just shooting it right out, Joel McHale played the voice of Johnny Cage, and it was funny because they played on this different angle of Johnny Cage that wasn't really, especially in the first live action movie.
Yeah.
Yes, he's very cocky, but in this one he's oblivious to what's happening. Just so everybody knows, this story that is being told is not just Scorpion's story. They are literally retelling the first Mortal Kombat movie. From a different perspective and adding new elements. They kind of just basically is like an animated reboot of telling that story. So it's the first time that you're meeting a lot of these characters. It's the first time all these characters are meeting each other. And I thought it was interesting that they literally just threw Johnny Cage because he thought it was an acting gig, and he's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. So oh, you guys got a script? I'm probably want to get one of those. I do acting, okay? I do acting. He's like, I'm not Tom Cruise. I act. So I thought that was a funny jab. I was impressed with Joe McHale because it made it entertaining. It made his character entertaining. If it was some other guy, I'd still laugh. But thinking of Joe McHale doing these lines,
because in most of the movies that we've seen him in, Ted, he is the super douche canoe. And Johnny Cage is portrayed as that,
right? Especially
in in MK9 through MK11 now. I mean, especially when in MK11 and MK11 they go through a portal for different timelines, and then old Johnny meets 90s Johnny, and he's just oh, fuck me. And it's priceless.
Yeah.
Another thing I liked about the voices is that at the end, because you didn't hear "Get Over Here" by Scorpion until the end, and they got Ed Boon to voice it because he is the original voice of Scorpion. So it's just fitting that, for this. And it was, as you had mentioned, we were talking about this earlier, it was such an epic moment that he does it.
Yeah, it was really funny because I felt like in the original film, they just had him do that during the big fight with Johnny Cage in the trees. But it literally was like, you were waiting for it the whole movie. You're like, I know he's going to say it. When is he going to say it? They took a very epic moment. And every time you thought that was going to be the moment, you're like, oh, it's going to get bigger than this. And then, it meets this climax. It was really fun. Like, good earned moment for the film.
Yeah. Other than that, now it's time to move on to the moment that, it's the worst, but you got to do it. Things we don't like. Hefe?
Honestly, it wasn't necessarily. It wasn't paced like Mortal Kombat, and I think a lot of that had to do with it telling the story, this backstory of what Scorpion had an ulterior motive, other than just being this guy at the tournament. Like, now he has to have a purpose. Like, he has to have an arc, And I feel like that took away. Like, it didn't feel like a tournament at all. Like, you had like literally the first actual fight during the Mortal Kombat that you see is with Johnny Cage, and he's literally just like in a mess hall, like a kitchen area, and all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, Baraka. Here's the thing with Baraka, he wasn't even in the first movie, and they don't even say his name in the film, in this film. He literally just starts swiping at Johnny, and Johnny's like, "Hey, hold on! Like, I don't know the choreography. It's like he's just like, oh god, hold on!" Then the guy's just coming at him. He's like, ah! He's freaking out. That was one thing about Joe McHale. Every time that someone like kind of snuck up on him, he's like a very high pitch. But yeah, so he getting slashed at out of nowhere, and it was like it didn't feel like. It wasn't like he was expecting it, obviously, because he's being dumb. And then after that, they go into the next fight, and it wasn't even like basically none of these are being staged. They're just kind of happening, and I guess instead now they're just kind of wander around the island and just run into people to fight. And I guess it's kind of like paintball. Where I say it's kind of like paintball in the essence of like basically when you run into someone you have an option. You say, do you surrender? And then the person who's being pointed at can say yes or no. And if they say no, they can try to dodge or whatever, or just shoot back, which happens a lot. So I guess Mortal Kombat has to be declared. Like it has to be declared. And so like when people start fighting, like wait. Did you declare Mortal Kombat?
I don't know. I didn't declare. Did you declare?
Did you declare?
I don't know.
Okay, so like they have to be on the same page.
I didn't. I declared, but she didn't declare. So
oh yes, I declared, but she didn't accept.
Okay.
So if like okay, is it Mortal Kombat Me Too movement? Like ask for permission. Can I fight to the death with you? Can I fight to the death with you, sir? Okay, great. Okay, let's do this. Like, no. So that was really interesting. But again, that's what really kind of threw me off with the movie. The pacing was thrown off because it didn't feel like a tournament was actually happening. It was just an island where people fought, and the first person to get here after everyone's fought, because they had a weird map. It was this 3D map that showed like where everybody was, and then anytime someone was eliminated, they would phase out and like, yes, your fighters are doing well. Yeah. They're on their way to going here. And it was like, oh, okay. And then, of course, the whole thing with Kano. Which I thought, they did him justice. They did a good job. They killed a lot more characters in this movie than I expected, in different ways than I expected. I know that you had mentioned some of that too. Some of the deaths.
Well, the thing was for me, like in a situation like this with timeline, I get it. A lot of times people take liberties between, especially for video games. I mean, Lord knows what liberties they've taken on other movies that are based on video games. But for this one, it had to deal with certain characters. Now, Hefe had mentioned about Baraka being in there at one point, fighting Johnny Cage. Baraka didn't show up until Mortal Kombat 2. However, there have been talks about his the Tarkatan race in between, in some of the animated versions, so I get that. Natara being in there, she was a vampire demon. that yells at Johnny Cage. She doesn't really show up
Not
until...
even a yell, it was like a hiss.
Well, you get what I mean.
Okay,
She doesn't show up until Deadly Alliance, so that's what threw me off.
She existed at this tournament. Literally, she didn't, like, it was a cameo, and it wasn't even a line, but Johnny's at, like, where they're serving food, and he's like, do you know if this is organic? And she just goes, yeah! You can't say my mouth, but it was a big...
Yeah, it was. But the biggest thing that I had was, spoiler alert, folks, but Gora was fighting Jax in the Outworld, and he rips his arms off. And now, for me personally, I was kind of like, I shook my head because I've looked into a lot of the Mortal Kombat, lore and whatnot, and you don't find out that Jax doesn't get his, cybernetic arms until around Mortal Kombat 3 because he gets them torn off by Ermac the Red Ninja. So that's, for me, as like one of those, Uber fans, if whatever you want to call it, or a Mortal Kombat nerd, I don't care. I got a little upset about that. I did, but at the same time, that didn't throw me off from the rest of the movie, though.
No, and it's things like that because they in that movie, he gets his arms ripped off, and it was funny because Raiden jumps right in, and they're like, no, you cannot interfere with the tournament, and it was actually before the tournament started. It was like basically pre-gaming brutality so people could watch, but they couldn't stop him.
Like a taste of things to come in the first one where Sub-Zero freezes the guard.
Right. So it's like basically just showing off his champion, and he's like, hey, I got this guy. So he rips off Jack's arm, but then Raiden comes in and he just cauterizes his arms right away, like his stubs on his shoulders. He just cauterizes it right away. It's like, oh, okay, so now he's not going to bleed to death, now he's not going to die, he's not going to go into recovery mode. He just literally, I just don't have any arms. So that's his life. And
what a way to bring the rain cloud, Hefe.
Yeah, I know. So that's just his life. But
right.
But we know as fans that he will get cybernetic arms eventually.
Yep.
So with it, again, that did not get resolved by the end of the movie,
no.
and just makes you think like, okay, well, how well did this movie do? And
I think it did well because of the fact that it does end, bookends on the beginning of Mortal Kombat 2, where Shang Tsung is asking forgiveness of Shao Kahn.
Yes.
So it definitely cliffhangs.
Yeah, it ends. The movie ends with Shao Kahn saying like, gather our forces, like we have a war to win or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically like, we're going to destroy Earth.
Yep.
So they're going to come back and they're going to conquer Earth. But that's just it. So I look at it and just say, all right, well, that means that they have to have another movie coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And I say have to because a lot of these animation projects, they plan that out.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know anything, I come from a big background of watching all of the DC animated films, which is still WB Animation, Warner Brothers Animation. And they have ceased production right now on any further DC titles. They came out with like 3 or 4 a year for like since 2009. So that's a lot of movies if you think about it. That collection of DC animation is huge right now, and a lot of them are very, 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 very good. Some of them I haven't bothered looking at, but a lot of them are very, very good. So I can only imagine that since they're not doing that, doing the next Mortal Kombat would make a lot of sense, especially if that's where the hype is right now.
Gotcha. Well, other than that, now it's time for one last thing. You gotta grade this.
Oh, yeah.
What are you gonna grade this? From the scale of, A to F. Obviously, it's not an F.
Sure, no, it's definitely not an F. I wouldn't even put it at a B, at a D. But I'd say a B. Yeah, I mean, like, I was fine with a good solid B. It definitely fulfilled my Mortal Kombat desires. I definitely loved a lot of the humor in it. And, probably my favorite bit of humor. Sonya Blade kicks Johnny Cage in the balls twice.
Yep.
And twice. And the first time he deserved it. The second time, he didn't deserve it. Let's be real here. He was just laying on the ground, and he was just talking, and she told him to shut up, and he wasn't saying anything bad, but she didn't agree with him. So her response was kick him in the balls.
Dick Kick City.
So, but this time he got kicked real hard and just got up and just walked it off. The first time it definitely took him by shock, but this one it was so funny. So by the end, my favorite bit of humor was he was asking for permission again to hug her because she said if you touch me, like you don't get to touch me without my permission. So he was asking for a hug. He's like, is it okay? Can I hug you? And then they hug, and he's like, oh yeah, that's nice. And so he walks away, and then he says to Jax, who's again armless, and just says like, yeah, you think she likes me? And he goes, well, did she kick you in the balls?
she didn't kick you in the nuts, did she?
Oh yeah, she didn't kick you in the nuts, did she? Yeah, that's what he said. And then and he goes, yes, she did. like very matter of fact, and very proud. He's like, you know what? If that means she likes me,
Yep.
yes, she did.
Alright, so you give it a solid B.
I give it a solid B.
For me, I'm giving it an A minus.
There you
I
go.
do, because it's like, apart from that little moments in the timeline, I'll forgive that. But I mean, as we were talking before, it is definitely, a sidestep from the traditional story that we hear all the time.
Yeah.
So, and I liked it. It was a nice. It was refreshing.
Right, and that's why I give it a B, because really the only thing that took me away from it being Mortal Kombat, besides having the characters, because if you didn't have the characters, it wouldn't feel like a tournament. If you didn't really play the games, or you just wanted to see an action cartoon,
I got you on that one.
it just didn't feel like a tournament at all. And I love like Dragon Ball Z. That's my thing. And it's when you have a tournament arc, it's a tournament. Like, you treat it like a tournament. Minus the last one, the Super. Let's not talk about that. That's for a different day.
Indeed. Other than that,
yeah.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure that you like, share with your friends, and as always, push that red button. Don't forget to ring that bell for instant notifications. Also, if there's anything you'd like to see on Dragonfire Entertainment, there's a comment section below. Leave us a request. We'll get to it as soon as possible.
Especially our next movie review. We could come up with 100 different ideas to watch for a movie, but if there's something you guys are curious about seeing, we're definitely gonna, put in our 2 cents.
Amen to that. Until then, I'm Wildman Wes.
I'm Hefe.
And we'll see you next time on Real World Movie Reviews.